Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Graphics Time! Yay! We're all wearing blue.
Yay.
Almost like we
How's
planned
everyone
it.
doing this morning? Yeah, we did.
It's 12:04 a.m., so it's a new morning for me. I don't know how it's going yet.
Well, we'll find out then. Welcome to the show. First of all, welcome to WDWNT Live. We are here every day throughout till the end of May, until the parks reopen, which Disney Springs is reopening today, actually. We have a team that's going and reporting on anything new, any construction changes, what stuff is open, how the social distancing is going to work and everything. We already have a post and a video from the other day where stuff was getting ready. But anyways, we're here and we're going to talk some graphics. It does not sound that exciting, but I assure you it actually will be a whole lot of fun. Let's go around and introduce ourselves and say what we do here at WDWNT. My name is Tyler. I am one of the graphic designers at WDWNT.
Do you want me to go now? Okay, so I'm Rob, and I do graphic design as well, backup video editing, and I'm on Park Center and host a show called Deep in the Plus. So excited to be here.
I also am on Park Center, and I didn't know we were doing everything. Sorry, go on.
That's it.
All right, and chat is wondering why Spencer wasn't fired yet. So Spencer, do you want to tell us all what you do?
What do I have to be fired for this time? What did I do?
I think it was just, I think they mean from like the roast still. Maybe
it's the ranking video, because I had some controversial
right.
opinions during the Parks ranking video on Monday. Hi, I'm Spencer. I spend way too much time on WDWNT Live for my own good, probably. If there's a person other than Tom who has been on the most shows, it's probably me. So if you've been watching, you're probably familiar with who I am by now. But for those of you who don't know, I am not on Park Center. I am not on Deep in the Plus. I am the Tokyo reporter. I am the single person who lives in Tokyo and goes to Tokyo Disney.
And you're like our audience proxy for today, seeing these ridiculous graphics for the first time, or questioning us about them.
Yeah, this should be interesting because, I see a lot of this stuff come up on Slack, and I watch all the shows and such, most of them. So it'll be interesting to hear a lot about like the crazy graphics or the stuff I've seen a lot. And I'm going to watch the chat as well and see what they say.
Right. Well, let's just perhaps we should explain what it is that goes into making the graphics and stuff. You're seeing a few of them in the thumbnail there, like anything that basically is a logo or some kind of cartoon drawing or animation or like a motion graphic or something that's edited as like a commercial or like the fake advertisements that you see on News Tonight. That's mostly Rob and I. That's our job. We do almost all the graphics, I believe, for our shows.
Fake advertisements? Those advertisements aren't real? Are you kidding me? What have we been waiting?
Oh, sorry.
Are you telling me that I cannot go down to Walmart and buy a box of Unscrupuloops right now?
And the gondola won't help me out with all of my Disney parks needs? This is horrible. I've been lied to. It's a scam. I'm
suing this company.
As you're making them, you're like, oh, well, this is totally real, obviously.
Exactly. And you know what? You're talking about the process, Tyler. I mean, like, and I know, Spencer, you're talking about Slack. It's like, I feel like I wish sometimes that Slack was a show unto itself that people could watch for us, because our Slack is the way we communicate back and forth, and somebody will just come in and ask for something so completely random. And instead of going, well, that's random, we just go, okay, when do you need it? And then try to put it together. So, yeah, it could be really fun. And then there's the times when it's like, we need it in, a couple hours. Sometimes we get a lot of lead time. Most of the time we get good lead time, but every now and then we get can you do it by 8 o'clock? And I think that most of the time we accommodate, though.
I was going to say, on the opposite end of that, normally we are given little to no context in Slack. It's not, for me, it's not about the time. It's about, hey, I need this. And I'm like, can you tell me more? They're like, I don't know.
Need thumbnail now.
Yeah, yes. or like, we'll talk about like the incorrects and the Disney Pluses as we get to them. But yeah, sometimes people give us a lot of detail. They're like, I need this font, I need this at the top and this at the bottom. Other times people are just like, hey, so we have a fake commercial. I need it. Here's the title. Figure it out. And we're just supposed to interpret whatever that is.
Oh yeah, my favorite was Duck Translator. And I'm like, oh yeah, what? And they're like, Duck Translator. And I'm like, what is that? What does that even look like? I have no idea what that looks like. And, what Duck Translator? Sure, let's do that. And then sometimes like it's spot on, and sometimes it's like, nah, that's not at all what we meant. So, hit and miss.
Spencer, what were you going to say?
The graphics with WDWNT, when I see like the context of things or lack thereof, or when I see it on shows, it reminds me of like watching Last Week Tonight. And they have all those crazy, weird Photoshop graphics that they just make for random one-off jokes. That's exactly what it reminds me of every time.
That's what we're going to see today, by the way. That like that bit where they're like, all right, let's go and just see everything that got made that didn't get used, or this is everything that got made just out of context. So, oh yeah, people in the chat are like, there's a bee voice. Yeah, Colleen is running our tech for today. She's loading in all the images and stuff. So I guess we'll see if we can try to get at least one, like take turns, run for Rob, one for me, and so on. And then we'll just go until like, I don't know, 1, 2. We'll see how long this goes.
Hey boys.
And Ben and Jill are in the chat being antisocial and not being on VMix. It makes me sad.
Well, they might like be at work, but they're also just watching.
There is no excuse for such behavior. I'm kidding.
Shall we get started then?
Okay, wait. Okay. Yeah. So, because I was having computer problems today, just so everybody knows, I have what is basically a video of all of your graphics, because I could pull them all at once, and that made it into like a slideshow.
Oh, okay.
Which like I can pause, and then I almost have all of Rob's graphics in individually, and then I can start on Tyler's graphics. For the chat, I used to be able to drag and drop things, and now I can't, and I don't know why. Taking much longer.
I'm so sorry, Colleen.
So
yeah,
you know, we appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you.
Super chats for Colleen.
Right. What would you like to start with?
Donate. It's World Bee Day, so you can donate super chats to support Colleen the Bee.
It's World Bee Day. I think Rob has a graphic with a bee on it.
He does.
That says Google. We may as well start with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unless we're doing like the weird.
So this is one that was never seen by anybody other than chat, because it was which day was it, Colleen? Was it? It was Earth Day. It was Earth Day that Google put this doodle that they call it up, and I saw it, and it had the bee on it, and I was like, you know what that needs? That needs Colleen's face on it. And I went in and grabbed it and put it together and threw it in Slack, basically just because it entertained me and I thought it would entertain Colleen. That's about it. That's had no other purpose in life other than that. And as soon as somebody got into random and started talking about Shop Disney and not being able to get mouse ears, it went away. So, I mean,
I enjoyed it.
That's all that matters. That's all that matters. But again, I thought it would be interesting to share just because no one else would see this.
If you
Not
ever
a great
wonder what
thing,
happened to the WDWNT Slack.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? One thing I wanted to kind of say is that, like, I feel like a big difference is that I feel like I'm a graphic designer and that Tyler's really a graphic artist. And I think to me, the difference is that I kind of take pieces and curate them into something else. I don't always make my own stuff. I don't freehand draw. And by make my own stuff, I mean, like, I will go in and, make other pieces, or a lot of times I can be pretty good at copycatting something or making something look real that isn't there. But I know Tyler's like really good at freehand drawing. That is not my thing. So again, everything I do is from a graphic design standpoint, not necessarily a graphic artist standpoint. That, to me, there is a difference.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, I know. Back and forth. I know. There are like there's conventions where they're like, we don't want illustrators. We want artists. I'm like, is there a difference? I thought they were the same thing. Anyways, I'm trying to look back through the question. Is there a tell between the two of your art styles? I think, like, Rob, your stuff tends to be more like vector based looking, if that's the way I can describe it.
Sure.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, and for people who don't know, and I assume I don't know who tunes into this show at all, but I think for people who don't know, there's vector and there's raster, when you're designing things, and so Photoshop is really more of a raster program, Illustrator is more of a vector program, and vector is really, you're just building things. You're building things
that can be resized.
Yeah, I mean, but you're building them more in like. There's a back-end computer code to it as opposed to it just being a photo. So it's the difference. I always made this comparison, but I don't think a lot of people would get it now, is that when you have a negative and you would make a photo, you would basically make it as large or small as you want to on an enlarger, and it would look great. If you take it and you scan it and you blow it up, it looks kind of like garbage. And I think raster images are like that you blow them up and you're going to have a problem. So when I build something, if it's a logo and it's going to be printed or it's going to be big, I usually do build it in Illustrator and Vector. So probably that's my tendency, is to lean toward that kind of stuff. So a lot of stuff's more logo based.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's interesting or not. I have no idea.
I'm finding it interesting because I'm like, yeah, you get to like nerd out about like graphic design and graphic arts and everything, and I'm sure like nobody else really cares that much.
But I'm glad we're doing it
here at least. Oh, we can talk forever about like just design philosophies and stuff.
I'm not that interested.
That's about right. Okay.
All right, let's go to the next graphic.
Okay. I have all of Rob's graphics, and I'm working through Tyler's.
Okay. Let's bring up another Rob one then.
Oh, it's like... Oh, okay.
Oh, God.
This is one in a series, isn't it?
It was, and I you know what, when I was, Tyler put this show together and asked me to be on it as well, and I was thinking I would put together like series of things, like a couple series, like the movie posters or something like that. And then I looked at what you'd put in, it was just samples of things, and that makes more sense. So one of the things that I think was kind of a cool story was that Tom asked for this thing called WDW News Today, The Resort. And he wanted to make an entire resort that he would show off on News Tonight basically the same day. So he wanted to have this whole thing done in the same day that he requested it. So they were going on at 9 o'clock, and it was like, hey, I need somebody to put together the resort. And he had, he always has starters for things that he wants. And so I went in and started working on it. And this is not the most exciting piece of it. I don't know, Colleen, if you have the test track picture, but there were a lot of pieces to this, and he would go through and he'd say, "Oh,
Yeah.
let me tell you about the resort." And he's like, "We have a room themed to the original test track," and you know, kind of to Tyler's point earlier about context, I was like, what does that even look like? Because it doesn't exist. You know, now I need to go and make this thing. So, yeah, this was all in one day. And I mean, I do also have another job. So it was kind of like, at the end of it, when it was done, yeah, this was like,
the test track one looks like a real hotel room. Like there would be that poster and those sheets, like the Art of Marvel Resort, and then this is just like a big
and then he was like, the hallway's full of ads, and I'm just like, okay, what would that look like? So, you know, we put this together, and there's one more with Skyliners. I don't know if you have that one, Colleen, but there were Skyliners, and the Skyliner one was the last one I did, because he said he wanted Skyliners running through the hotel lobby, and I was like, I don't even know I was like, do you need that? Because I can't think real world how that would look. And he was like, no, we got to have that piece. So this was the last piece to it. But something he said on one of the shows, like I think it was the Wigs post show when we were talking about the movie posters, is that it's kind of nice to be able to show off this kind of stuff that really only shows on News Tonight for 7 seconds per frame, and kind of explain what was going on and how it got put together. So there were, I think, 10 of these, maybe 12. Talking about WDW News Today, the resort, and what that would look like. And so I was just kind of proud of that it was just you know, we turned it around in the same day, and they went live with it that night. So that's it.
Those ones are fun now.
That was interesting. I remember that commercial too. It was... Every time I see like a really weird commercial on News Tonight, it throws me for a loop, even though like I see what's coming because I'm in that channel. So I'll be like, oh, that'll be interesting. And then I'll see it and I'm like, that is not at all what I expected them to do. And it's like half just the graphic that shows up, and then the other half is like the writing that goes with it. And I'm like, this is just perfect.
A lot of the time Oh, go on.
No, I was just going to say what was weird about that is it was actually done live, which normally and maybe it was because we didn't have much time, but normally those bits that I do are usually done live. And, you know, Tom will say, oh, I saw this today, or we just rolled this out today, and he'll go through and he'll talk about it one by one. But there are some of those that we do that go into a commercial that live on. But I honestly, I don't know if this one was ever lived on as a separate piece or not.
Yeah, this one was just a bit that we did. There's stuff that's like commercials that are specifically like edited ahead of time, and then they're played on the show. But then there's the sections where it's like part of like a monologue joke, where Tom will occasionally be like, "Oh, we made a resort. Did you hear about this?" And then we'd show the image, like we'd make it sound like it's real, which is always fun because sometimes we are showing actual like news images, but then sometimes we'll do stuff like this where Tom will be like, "Did you see these resorts? We bought a resort." Like for a moment, you're like, Is it real? Is this like when we're like, oh yeah, we're doing a cruise? Like it sounds fake, but then we were actually going to do a cruise. But
WDWNT cruise did sound fake a little bit.
It was real for a time until Disney canceled cruises. But yeah, we'll do a bit.
I believe the world canceled cruises.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes it'll be in a monologue or, okay, well, for example, here's one. So I wrote a monologue. A lot of people think that like the monologue is just written by Tom. A lot of us actually contribute to the monologue. And if we have a joke, we write it and he chooses whether or not it's going to be in the show.
Tom's not actually that funny.
I wrote.
That's why I thought he wrote most of the monologue.
This was, I think there was a logo in Galaxy's Edge. It was like Bina's toy chest or whatever the heck it's called. And the logo looks like a pizza that's been stretched out or slapped against a wall. So I wrote the joke that there's a new logo for this thing in Galaxy's Edge. Can we show it? No, that's an image of a pizza smacked against the wall. Show the real logo. And then it never got put in the monologue, but Nick still loaded up the graphic. So then he's like, hey, Tom, why do we have a pizza on a wall? And they were just like, oh, no context, just brought the image up. They're like, I have no idea what this is or why this was made. And I'm just sitting there watching the show live like, oh my God. Which happens frequently when a graphic I've made is taken out of context. And then they just make a joke about it. I'm like, that's not what... But it was much funnier that way than it was as the actual monologue joke. All right, what else do we got?
No. Yeah, so this was one, like, during all of the problems with I think it was all the problems with making reservations early on in Star Wars Land. They did a commercial about how they would need backup servers, and Tom did a huge, like, a big commercial about it as if he was speaking like Watto and talking about you need to come to us, Disney, for your backup servers. And again, this was like, all I got was the title, Black Spire backup servers. And so, I looked in the Star Wars concept art, I found a piece of art, I found some computer servers, and then just kind of merged them together. And then really spent more time on the name because I'm a huge Star Wars geek. I love buying the toys, and so that the edge around it, I was trying to recreate like the Kenner packaging of Star Wars toys, and then I put in Arabesh underneath it. Black Spire backup servers is what that says in Arabesh at the bottom. I just found this one interesting, and this was one that was, it was like, what does that look like? I don't know. What does this need to be? And this is what I threw together. I thought it looked cool, but I have no idea. Like, once I make something and put it out there, I don't get it. I mean, we don't get a ton of feedback either. We get, sometimes Tom will go, that's perfect. And then I just never see it again until it shows up on News Tonight. Sometimes it'll be, we need to do better. And then sometimes there are very rare times, but sometimes where we will make something that just doesn't get used.
But this one was
the great thing
whole ad.
Yes, it was a whole ad.
Spencer?
Oh, I was just going to say, the great thing is that ad works again because of all the Shop Disney problems. It's funny again, thank God.
Yeah, but in that case, it's really not the art. It's really I think the bit itself. The art just kind of like completes it. Like,
yeah.
I mean,
well, that's what the art. That's
good.
Art. It'll make the bit, or it'll help supplement and hold it up. And either way, I think it serves its purpose well. And that's why a lot of this stuff ends up being funny, is because you have the good graphic with it, and then it works together with the bit. I think that's why these are funny.
All right, this one was we did the funny face masks this was a joke one that was like, here's what people might be selling on online, and then we were just given a big list of gag masks. Like masks that are a joke, and so it was up to us to just layer in what this was going to be. And this was another one where I think it was like the day of. But one of them was supposed to be Tony's chicken parmesan. So here I am on Google looking for pictures of the chicken parmesan. But then I was like looking for the worst photo of it too. Like, this is a terrible photo that I had to like lighting correct because it was just so dark. And it just made it look even grosser at the top. Like, the cheese is gray. This one was fun to do.
You know what was crazy about this though, and Tyler put all of the fake masks together, is that I think we were pitched the fake masks at the same time as we were pitched the real masks.
Yeah.
And I think you and I were both like, is this, you want this for a bit, or you actually want us to make masks? And it was like, yes.
Yes.
That's exactly what we want. So
that is, being a designer, that's what happens a lot. You'll be like, hey, so do you want it done like A, or do you want it done like B? And someone will be like, yeah. And it's like, okay, but like we give you an option between, you said yes, which one? Like, whatever. Like,
and a lot of that's going to fall to us. I mean, we need to ask the questions, and that's kind of like our job as designers, is to say, okay, you've got a vision in your head. How do I get into your head and figure out what it is that you want, so that I can put it down on paper or on a screen that you like? And that's why communication and design is really a huge key, to be able to have that conversation and to ask that question and to follow up. And we're definitely given room to do that. It's just a lot of times the original ask is just like, crazy. And then we're just like, okay, so it may be just crazy to us because it makes perfect sense to the person who's asking, because they have it in their head. And now we just need to try to get it out of their head and make what they had in mind. And sometimes we make exactly what they had in mind. Sometimes we are so far away from it that it's frustrating. And sometimes we create something that they didn't even know they want. And they go, yes, that's actually better. We like that. And those are the wins. That's the big time.
And we'll get to that eventually. This one.
All right.
Oh dear God. Yeah.
So here's the thing about this one, and this was a commercial that we brought out. I think that the commercial already existed, and we didn't have any art for it, because that was a thing that I think before, Tyler, you and I got started, I don't think there were a lot of just like extra graphics done, and so this was one that they had a commercial for Captain EO Crunch, and they just wanted a thumbnail for it to be able to show it during one of the shows, and it was during the space show. And so the Captain EO Crunch part of it, that graphic already existed. That was done by another artist. That it was on TeePublic, and it you could buy it. And I went back and I got that and put it onto, like, the milk is separate, the bowl is separate, the box is not the box it was on. I recreated the Captain EO rainbow in the background, so all of that part is done. I did not do the box itself, though. Again, that was done by another artist. So that goes back to the whole graphic design thing, is that I just kind of created something new out of all the pieces that were there. But I just thought it was kind of fun. And then the tagline, I actually worked the Captain EO attraction at Epcot, so it was part of my job to introduce the movie. And ladies and gentlemen, put on your 3D glasses as Eastman Kodak proudly presents Captain EO. Like, that was me. That was like, so I wanted to make this one also because I just kind of loved that movie. And so we're bringing brighter days to breakfast was like just me trying to be funny. That wasn't scripted. That wasn't in the commercial. Just because I was a Michael Jackson fan and also liked this movie. So this was just fun to put together. Again, is that interesting? It seems to have brought the house down. Cool.
No, I was just checking the chat. Oh my God. Okay, well, here's an example of we're usually given something, and that's supposed to be a joke, but it's up to us to sort of make what the joke is. So in this one, okay, I mean, there wasn't a joke here initially. This one was the idea that now that the parks are closed, food is now free to roam around the park, or like, we played this song. It was like "Born Free" or whatever that song is called. And Tom just said to me, I want images of like pizza running out of the restaurant, or like running through a field, like it's free now. It can just leave. And so I was bringing up images of restaurants and then the food that would be at that restaurant escaping. And in this case, I took a photo of corn dogs that we did a review of at Harambe Market, and one of them had a bite taken out of it. So well, first off, Thomas and I, Thomas, the co-host of Ride Rehab, were deciding if the stick would be the bottom of the corn dog if it was alive, or the top, like their head. And we agreed
I
that
love
the
that
bottom.
was a conversation that happened in your house. Where does the stick go?
Dear God.
I mean, it should have been the top, because now it looks a little bit uncomfortable, or the leg should have been at the very bottom of the stick. But since there was a bite taken out of a corn dog, I'm like, oh, I guess this one's dead. I'll just put it on the ground. And then when I layered in the other ones, I'm like, maybe this is a narrative. And then I just added like the chalk outline and the 2 corn dog cops. It's so stupid. It has nothing to do with the Born Free thing. But no one told me that we shouldn't use it. And then it ended up in the show, and they're like, what is this? It's so dumb.
Jesus Christ.
But it's funny. Oh, God, these look so real.
Well, and that's the thing, too, is like I said, part of what I do is trying to make things look like they actually are real. And this was an ask that came. I know it was a day where Tyler had like 92 things that he was working on at the same time. And so I just happened to see the ask come up in Slack that was, hey, so that picture with the name tags and duct tape, can we put this on it? And so I don't want to ask a stupid question, and I didn't know if there was actually like, if this was a conversation that had been happening in Slack that I didn't know anything about. And so I just went through and I was like, I think I remember seeing a picture like that somewhere. And it was one, I think, didn't Josh Tomorrow maybe put it up? And it was about like, they were positive thoughts or something like that. And so I went and found the picture and put this together and threw it back up in Slack. And that was the last I heard about it until it showed up on News Tonight. So it was really, it was just it was a quick one-off, but it goes back to the whole, like, trying to make things look like they are real. So I used, different fonts and saturation, and there's an opacity to it so that you can see the tape through it. Trying to blur the one in the background just a little bit and make the ones in the foreground a little bit more clear so that they match the tags that they're on. Just a lot of little things that go into that, because I feel like sometimes maybe we make things look too real. I
thought this was real. It looks practical.
Yes, exactly. Practical versus screens. We're part of the problem, not part of the solution.
Like on stuff like that, you have to, oh my God, like talking about making it look real. Like, oh no, we can stay on that one, on the Country Bears one. Cause like there's actually text that is on those little banners where it says catch it now, limited time show. But to match, like, first, like, for example, we have to erase the actual text that's there, which means we're painting over essentially with the same color that's underneath, and then adding like a noise filter just to make it look like it's part of the actual photo, like the grain that some images have. And then like for the bottom where it says forever, I don't remember if there was any text. Country Bear Chamber, I think there's some kind of text at the bottom of that, but then I erased it, and then reference to a similar font style, but also the same like drop shadow and design of the actual text above it, just reversing the colors so it looks like it belongs there, and then like blurring it just enough so it's not completely crisp, because you can tell when you add text into something, like it's so crisp at the edges, you want it to look like it was in the photo, so it's out of focus or fake. And this one was like, yeah, just pick rides that don't exist anymore or were going to not exist, and then add forever to it to make it look like it's interesting real.
About this bit, though, is that in this particular bit, and I think I have one of these in my box of graphics I was going to share today about River Country. But with this particular bit, you and I kind of split the list half and half, which I think sometimes is sometimes is almost a better thing, because it gives, like we talked about, we have slightly different art styles. So we did this bit together, and again, split it 50-50, which I think makes it visually more interesting, because we're gonna have different ideas of what it looks like and different styles of putting it together. For this one, I solarized the image of what is left, what was left, it's all gone now, of river country. And I'd actually been to river country once in my life, so I have kind of a connection to it. I was like, no, I'm definitely gonna do river country, but it is a scare. When it was just before they paved over it for building Reflections, it was a scary place, and people got trespassed all the time for going and trying to take pictures. And so they would take these pictures that showed towels laying there, and just like as if it was the zombie apocalypse, and everybody pieced out at the same time and never came back, and it was never touched, which is, so when I looked at this, I was like, this has to look like a horror movie. So this was as close as I could get to that. But it was interesting.
Inverting colors goes a long way to making it look like a horror movie.
Yeah,
so.
I was gonna say. It made it look gross.
Oh dear God.
Okay, so one of the reasons I put this up is because a lot of times there is collaboration in Slack when it comes to images. This was not what I started with when Nick said he wanted a Cooking with Nick logo.
What?
Because that's the Nick wouldn't go. What I want is I want me in a van. No, he wouldn't say that. So I put it together with Nick, and they were. I don't remember who it was. It may have been Tom. Was like, hey, he needs to be in a van. So then I put the van together, and then somebody else said something about it needed to say free candy, and then I went and added the magnets, like as if it was an AP magnet and our Stage 89 magnet to it, and threw it together. So again, I don't think this is something that Nick was thinking when he asked for a graphic, but it was what ended up happening. And then I also remember that we also made recipe cards for one of his cooking bits, and I don't think the recipe cards ever got used. I thought about that later, is that I made all the he sent me the recipes and I put them up, and I don't remember if they were used or not, but I feel like that was one of those things where like they just kind of ran out of time to show the cards. But I was very proud of the throwing the Stage 89 magnet on there, because I thought it made, I don't know what Nick's car looks like, but I assume it's got a Stage 89 magnet on it.
We assume it has.
When was this first used?
The Cooking with Nick?
Yeah.
What do you mean? For the first show he did, it was before, it was way before COVID. It was a bit on News Tonight back when Tom had his, was doing News Tonight out of his apartment, because they could just go literally on location to his kitchen, and Nick would put together, or would do, cook something from Disney.
Was it the Tony's Ragu? Was that the first time?
No, I don't think so. I don't remember what it was. And this may have been one of those bits that they had done several times without a logo, and then at some point they said, we need a logo. Because I think that's evolved over time too, is that everything kind of needs a graphic now, whereas before it was maybe just the things that were going to be commercials needed one, or I think everything needed a graphic, and then Tyler had to step up the game and make everything a motion graphic. So, it went from it may need a graphic to it definitely needs a graphic to that graphic better move.
Yeah, this one will eventually move. No, it's work. It's fun too. We have one for Jumble Cruise this week. That one's going to be fun.
Oh, cool.
Oh, this one was great. This was part of the free food thing as well. So I was just grabbing images. I'm like, what's another food stand? And I was like, oh yeah, Joffrey's. That one had the bees. So I added the bees in. First of all, I love the donut. Like, I drew the faces onto the donuts, and I like how they're all holding hands as they're walking away. And then because there's cast members in the photo, the one at the corner is just waving goodbye. But the bees, that's just an actual image of a beehive. And then I could not find an image of a swarm of bees. So that's just a brush in Photoshop that if you were to swipe, if you were to draw it and it's very big, it looks like leaves. Leaves on a tree. But I made it very tiny and I made it go behind the sign. And then I just like colored in a little gradient. So it looks black and yellow like there are bees on it, or there are bees. That one was fun. Like that again, they didn't ask me to do that. I just did that. And then no one said, don't do that. So it's in the show.
Bees.
There's Colleen. I was wondering when she was going to show up.
This one's good.
Yeah, so this one was one that was I forget the original bit, but it was something at Disneyland Park.
Grad night?
No, it was an older thing. Like it seemed like it was like a
date
1960s thing. Sure, let's call it that. I don't think that's what it was, but I feel like it was something Star, because then he wanted to do Death Star, and that was again one of those things where without the context of the original bit, I wasn't really sure what Death Star at Disneyland looked like, and so that was the ask. And so I'm a huge like Disney fan, and also love Disney trivia and to know everything about the parks and all that. And so I'm certainly not going to ask the question. So I had to go research it because I didn't want to look stupid not knowing whatever this thing was. So I went in, found the original artwork, and then just parodied it. And I think that the miss here probably is that I think this is a dead-on parody if you knew the original source.
Oh, it is.
And so if you didn't know the original source, it looks a little bit weird because of the way that it's laid out, and it's like it's got the old school Disneyland, but like a vector bright graphic of the Death Star. So I just thought it was interesting to me because I think this looks almost exactly like the original, but I don't think anybody knows what the original, other than Tom, and really in this bit, because he asked for the bit, that's all that matters, that anybody else would know what the original looked like.
I get it. It looks good.
Oh God.
There's a bunch of older commercials that we were asked to, oh God, I hate the way it looks now that I see it. There were a bunch of older commercials that we were asked to add graphics to, like Rob said before, and one of them was Doors, which was a parody of Jaws. And so I made it look like the poster for Jaws. The only problem I have seeing it now is that there are people in the door that's falling off. Like I never erased them from that, like because the window should be transparent. That's the only bad thing. But other than that, it's like when we're replicating something, for example, like you want to find a font that looks the same. And in some cases, you can go to websites where people have actually replicated the font. And you could just use the entire alphabet with it. And I think that's what I did for this one, or it might have just been a generic font that looked identical and was just as bold or something.
That is one of the bigger problems, though, with trying to do, like you talked about, like I've when you say it out loud, I feel your pain about the font thing, because a lot of times with trying to replicate something, you want the exact same font. And if it's something a little bit more offbeat than Jaws, like Jaws is pretty well known, but if it's something a little bit more offbeat than that, like and I'm trying to think of something recently, but like Muppet Labs, like the Muppet Labs font that's on the costume, like what is that font? How do I find that font?
Oh, yeah.
You really just kind of have to go dig, because nobody's really going to have that. That can be the most frustrating thing sometimes, that it takes a long time to either find a reference piece for the image itself or to find the font that matches it, because man, Tom knows what the font is. Like when he sees it, he'll go, that's not the font. That's not it. And so you can't try to pass off something that's not the font and him not know it, because especially with the Disney stuff, he knows it cold. And so it has to look as close as possible to the original. And again, I respect that greatly. I think it's great that he knows so well what he wants on that.
It just must be really aggravating, like whenever you get to it must be really aggravating though whenever you get to a point where you're like, yes, this is it, I've got it, this is the right font, and it all looks great, and he's like, no, that's the wrong font.
You know what? Again, if it's wrong, I kind of know, and I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe this is close enough, and then it's not, and that's fine. You know, I kind of like sometimes to be pushed to get that better piece, and I think that collaboration has been something that I think we've all been able to do. Is like, you know, you put something together, and you're not doing it half-assed. You're doing it as best as you can. But when you put it together, and then they go, you know what? I think it could use this. Then you get that collaboration that I think oftentimes will make something even better. But the Jumble Cruise, sorry, Colleen, the Jumble Cruise thing was one that we put together originally because it was supposed to be a takeoff on Jungle Cruise. I love this game. Like Ben and the game writers team have put together and the tech team have put together this amazing game that I love. Like, I enjoy playing Jumble Cruise at home while it's happening and trying to figure it out.
Oh yeah.
But when the original ask came, the ask was for it was not really, I don't think, for the logo itself, but was for a game board, and so that they could, you know, have the letters move around on a game board. So we put together this piece for the Jumble Cruise. I had a regular graphic for this, and then I had the game board itself, and then worked back and forth with Ben Harris to put together like what he needed for the background. And he's like, no, we need this, and you know, we'll separate out the pieces, and we put it together, and then we had the game board. From this, though, we did a Halloween version of the Jumble Cruise, and then the ask came to put together same thing but make it feel Halloween. And the cool thing about this one was that I had it done, and then Tom was very specific that he needed the tiger with the glowing eyes from the Jungle Cruise to be in it. And so I went through and created that, and it was, the original one didn't have it, and I think it was like an hour before the episode started, that where we were going to play the game, that he was like, I want that tiger in there. And then he was like, let's see if my tiger made it in there. Yep, my tiger made it in there. And that's one of those things where you're like, yay, you know, we did it. We made it happen. And then there was a third version that we did for the space show. And again, that was one of those
scary.
What's with the Mickey? Yeah.
That was one of those things that Tom put it. He put it in
like a popcorn bucket.
I don't think it was. I don't think so, but it may have been. It was something that Tom put in Slack. I think it was a sculpture. He put it in Slack, and it was like, somebody cleaned this up, and I cleaned it up and put it back into Slack for him to do something with. And then I thought, well, I can't remember if I don't think I added it. I think he asked it to be added to this, and then I added it to a recent Star Wars graphic we did. But the fact that this was in space, you know, I thought I was pretty excited about that. You know, sometimes I think I'm funny, and so when I like put the exhaust port on the back with, like, you know, the actual Jungle Cruise boat going through space, I thought that was funny. But then for this week, Tyler has taken that graphic and then made a motion graphic out of the Jumble Cruise. So again, that's where we have some collaboration back and forth.
I think you used that. You used that.
Oh my God! What is that picture?
Have you never seen that photo? People were okay. So, oh my God, yeah, that is a photo of Stitch from Great Escape. People were like,
"That is horrifying."
So we reported on our site. We reported on WDWNT that Stitch's Great Escape was closing. There were no other scheduled times afterwards, and we had heard that there was no more performances ever because it was changing. And then the day came where cast members were like, oh, this must be the last day then. because, well, for one thing, the website WDWNT told us that it's the last day, and they're 99% correct about these things. And then they were told, no, this isn't the last day. It's a seasonal operation. And I'm sorry, does this look like seasonal operation? Because this photo surfaced of like as soon as it closed, they started dismantling it, and they're like, yeah, Disney still is saying right now that Stitch is seasonal operation, and there's probably like
Hasn't
dismantled, destroyed
like,
Stitches like that.
The theater
hasn't it
Stitch
been closed for like 2 years now?
Yeah. The theater for Stitch has been like totally dismantled, and it is now used as a dressing room for Stitch for when you meet him.
Jeez.
And they have like the bleachers like pushed up against the wall, and they use it as shelving. I have heard.
See, and that's actually even worse somehow, because that still could be like attraction space, and they're just using it as a dressing room.
Oh, anyways. It's just one of those things where Disney is like, I don't know, maybe they're just trying to spite us by like, no, it's not closed. But it is.
So with this one, the Tron, we do a show called Deep in the Plus. We talked about that. Spencer mentioned earlier that he's not on it. And so I built the logo for Deep in the Plus, and then it was something that we were going to do. And so basically the show is that we go deep into the Disney Plus catalog, and we find movies that maybe people have not watched yet, or maybe that they might have missed. And I'm a huge Tron fan. I think Tron Legacy was an underrated movie that, even though it has a cult following, I think that there are still a lot of people who didn't see it. It definitely didn't have the box office take that I would have hoped for it. Especially, as many people as love the original. So I convinced Jill that we should go and watch this movie and talk about it, because she hadn't seen it or wasn't interested in it. And so when I made this thumbnail for it, this is the episode of Deep in the Plus that has gotten the most traffic, and I do think it's because of the thumbnail, because it just really looks cool. And it's not necessarily what I did, but it's the fact that it's the Tron imagery is just such a cool aesthetic. So I was really excited about the way this one turned out. I also have one that Alicia and I did for the Computer the War tennis shoes that I didn't show here. Did not get as much traction, and I don't know if it's because people don't want to watch the Computer the War tennis shoes, or if the graphic wasn't as good. But I definitely think, and Ben and I have talked about this before, a lot of times the thumbnail goes a long way in getting a little bit more interest when you're scrolling through YouTube. So that's another thing that we do, not just bits for News Tonight, but thumbnails for the bits for News Tonight, thumbnails for the shows that we were doing, just to make sure that the whole package looks good.
I just watched Tron Legacy today, actually, so this makes me very happy.
I was
thinking to myself, oh no, I've loved that movie since it came out. I was thinking to myself, though, every time I watch Tron Legacy, I always wonder why people either don't know it, or if they know it, why they don't like it. Because I've always thought it's a great movie with like the typical flaws of any other movie. It's not especially bad or anything. It's a good movie. I like it.
Yeah, and we talk a little bit about it. I mean, getting a different point of view, because I am a fanboy versus Jill was not a huge fan of Tron in general. And again, I would never recommend the original Tron. I love it, but it does not stand the test of time. It was an amazing avant-garde movie. There's a prop culture about it. It's definitely a cult classic, but it's one that just, it's a little slow. It doesn't really stand up to today's standards, but Tron Legacy was a great sequel / reboot of that, and visually just amazing. And so I don't know why people don't really love the movie. But when we go into this and Deep in the Plus for like 30 minutes, we go in and we talk about the cast and what was happening and the box office versus, what it actually did, and maybe some weird things that we saw in the movie or things that we had forgotten that didn't remember. But again, visually, we're talking about graphics. Visually, I think Tron Legacy is a stunning movie. I really love it.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Yeah.
before I talk about this, someone in chat did want to know, do we have formal art school training? Not training, but did you all have formal art schooling? I went to college in Toronto for graphic design, and then I hated it, ironically, because I wanted to do comics and artwork. And then I switched into a program called illustration instead, where they did teach you about sequential art comics and storyboarding. But I've always loved graphic design, and I was always very good at it. I just didn't like the school, and I didn't want to go work for a company where they requested graphic designs from me. But this is very different. This I actually.
What do you do now exactly?
But here it's like, it's for a joke. Like, this isn't going to be like stuff that we're going to put on boxes and sell. I mean, we actually have sold stuff. Like Reflections from Forever has been an item that we used on like all of our marketing. It was an actual event, but it was for something that I genuinely cared about. And the pin design turned out amazing. Whereas, like, I don't know, if I worked for, like, let's say Heinz, I'd have to be, like, making advertisements for ketchup. Like, I would much rather be doing it for Disney or, for example, here at WDWNT. But, yes, I did go to school for graphic design and illustration.
Yeah, so I started out making products for Heinz.
Name something that Rob Whiteside and Bob Chapek have in common.
Yes, exactly. Not really, but sort of. Honestly, I got involved in graphic design early on in college because I wasn't doing so well, and I did extra credit things like make programs for the plays, because I could, do basically just like a lot of like layout for things, and it was kind of a tick above what they were used to, because a lot of times back in the day, they would just handwrite one, who has the best handwriting, we're going to put together a playbill or something like that, or we're going to type it up or just draw the front. So I found out that people liked it when you would do that kind of stuff for them, and that was cool. So I actually went to college for corporate communications, which is more of more PR, and that was not the direction that I took. As soon as I left college, I went and worked for Disney for a while. What I wanted to do for them was work for the Eyes and Ears, which is the company newsletter, the cast newsletter, and do the things I love, which is photography and design and layout, and learn more about the parks. So I thought that would be kind of perfect. But then I left there when I couldn't get a job like that, and went to work for A&P Food Stores, which doesn't really hardly exist anymore. I don't think they changed the names. It was Walbaum's, Food Mart, Save a Center. But I used to do grocery store ads. And so if you see like the ads that come in the kids, there's a thing called the Sunday newspaper. Look it up. But it was actually a print ad that you would get in your Sunday newspaper, and they at the time were still doing paste up, where they would just typeset everything and lay it out on big boards and then send it to the printer. And so I introduced it was my job to train them to do page layout. And so I was taking like these old school guys who were used to doing this and trying to teach them page layout on computers, and they didn't use computers, and it was just weird. But at that time, I did a lot of design work because everything was old school, and you'd have to go and recreate logos and things like that. And I actually made a font out of our logos with a program called Fontography, and so that you would type a different key and get different logos. So that's where I got my design start, and then moved into just, again, sort of more graphic design with programs like Photoshop and Illustrator as it went around. I do a lot of video editing with Adobe Premiere and Final Cut Pro. So, I mean, to me, it's just kind of like I've learned it as I've gone. I did not go to school for it.
And now this. I forget. I don't even know who this guy is, to be completely honest, but they were like, make a sign that says this on it. So I just attached it to a flag and shoved it on there and just made it look as real as possible. I have nothing more to say about this graphic.
So what made you throw it in there?
What?
Just out of curiosity. What made you throw it in there then? If just
I just thought it was funny. We saw it once on the show. We saw it once. I think it played for like 8 seconds, but it still took me like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes to make. So I at least wanted to put it in here to show it again.
Yeah. So the next one. So the next one, there are a lot of memes that show up on our social media, especially on Instagram, that somebody had come to me and said, hey, we think it's funny that with the body temperature checks that they're going to be doing when they open up Disney again, that if we, would use the CDA and, integrate them together. So I created this graphic using it was like, I don't know what a body temperature check stand is going to look like here because we hadn't had them yet. So, so I went and took the one from Shanghai they were using just before they shut down. And so like that gating and the tent are from Shanghai. And I'm sure that if you could get close enough to that sign, you might actually be able to see that there was some Chinese on it, because the body check part had some Chinese symbols, and I just put the word Disney over top of it. You were talking about that earlier, Tyler, how you like paint something off, and so I did that. And so then I cut the entire tent out and then placed it in front of the Magic Kingdom, but I had to place it in such a way that it would look like it was actually sitting there. And then these three CDA from Monsters Inc. were all in different pictures, and so I had to kind of find them in different pictures, match the color a little bit, spread them out, and put it together. So I think this is one of those things that people might blow through our Instagram and go, huh, that's funny. But it took a lot of work to put together and to try to really make it look real, which I hope it does. I hope it looks like this could actually be happening right there. I mean, there are some things, like you said, like you look at something after you've done it and go, ooh, I should have done this, or I should have fixed that. But that's where this lived, was on Instagram.
Honestly, if they did do CDA, oh dear God, if they did do CDA, if they dressed the body temperature check people as CDA, I think that would be the most immersive thing ever, but that's just me. This is horrible in so many ways.
Nathan came to me and he's like...
Just a picture from your last vacation, Tyler?
Oh yeah. I went to Dodney Land. It's a Disneyland knockoff. Nathan is Skip Lewis on News Tonight, and he came to me and he's like, "Hey, so we're doing this Skip Lewis bit where I designed some attractions and I want to have a visual for each of them." And this one was we're like, we were trying to think of what would be like a regular ride you can make into an inappropriate joke that would get Skip Lewis fired. And I said, well, what if instead of the golden horseshoe, it was the golden camel toe? And we debated along if that was even too mean, or sorry, not too mean, too inappropriate or not. And I think we pitched it, and it was okay. So I took an actual image from the golden horseshoe, and then I had to look up an image from a burlesque show that was still at least appropriate looking enough, but the joke is mostly in the title of that. And then I drew over it so it looks more like it was a drawing rather than a bunch of images layered in together.
This one, I remember seeing that Skip Lewis bit, and I saw this graphic, and that's what killed me for this one. It was just hilarious.
People in the chat are like, oh, what is this?
It was so funny.
Out of all of the ones from that bit, I think this one was my favorite just because it was so outlandish. Okay, yeah, get this off the screen.
Okay,
oh,
so...
wow. That changed.
So Well, no. So here's the thing: is that I was actually in, I think in California at Disneyland, and the request had come earlier for we had to stop using Jeopardy, and so there were graphics that they were using that I think were just literally the Jeopardy graphics. And they said, we're going to do a game. It's going to be similar to Jeopardy, but we want to call it the Dream Sequence because we can't call it Jeopardy. And so I went in and was like, okay, you don't want it to look like Jeopardy. And so I tried to find something that would look kind of modern, but not like Jeopardy. And then I threw this together and sent it. And they were like, no, it has to look like Jeopardy. I'm like, wait, but I thought we didn't want it to look like Jeopardy. So I was like kind of going the other way. So this is what I came up with the second time, which is basically like, looks like Jeopardy. So that was, again, another one of those where I think I know what they want and I put it together and I throw it out there and then they're like, nope, that's not at all what we mean. We want it to look like this. So that was also a time where we had talked about fonts, trying to find a font that would match that. And it's not too hard because Jeopardy's been around for a while, but you want it to look right, but but still be ours. So I just thought that was an interesting thing to see the before and after of what that looked like, because the first one, now that I look at it, is like, what was I even thinking on that one? That was horrible.
Do we need to tell people why it's called Dream Sequence? In Ellen's Energy Adventure, I feel like people don't know. There are a lot of people who just have never seen whatchamacallit. It's in Ellen's Energy Adventure.
What, 3 years ago?
Yeah, I know, but like, there are a lot of people who just don't go, who have never been on that ride. Let's be fair. Like, they probably were like, I don't know what that is. I want to go on the roller coasters. In Ellen's Energy Adventure, she dreams that she is on Jeopardy, and then the joke is that the ride is her dream sequence and you are going into it. And so, yeah, that's why our parody of Jeopardy is called the Dream Sequence. Which, like,
now everyone knows that when you're falling asleep. Now everyone knows that when you're falling asleep in front of a TV, what's going to happen? Bad hair day. A dream sequence? That's right, ma'am, a dream sequence. Can we get some fog in here? That's not fog. It's not a dream sequence without some fog.
Oh my gosh. Do you want to just do the whole show?
Yes, I love that show. It's so good.
What were we talking about? This was a News Tonight discussion, and I don't remember what we were talking about, but we were like, what in Disney needs to be replaced or something? And I think I was not asked to make this. I just made this. And I was like, I think Stitch should have its name changed to this. Help, we don't know what to do with this space. By the way, that font, the bottom one, the one that looks like the Meet the Robinsons font, Disney uses that everywhere. That's the font for their cruise line. My hairdresser has this font. Like, it's such a overused font. But that is the Lilo and Stitch one. My only regret is
but at the same time, it kind of speaks to the whole that I think that's because I threw a PNG in there.
Yeah.
But that kind of speaks to the whole Tomorrowland that never was sort of a thing, because it's got that kind of Metropolis feel to that font, and I think sometimes that font is actually called Metropolis. So.
I have like 3 versions of it, and they all have different names, but they look almost identical. That happens all the time. Like that Jungle Cruise font that you used, I found like 2 of the same of it, but they're like subtly different. There's like 8 different Jungle Cruise fonts in general.
Well, it's usually because there is the one that you have to pay for, and then somebody goes, well, I can do one like that, and then I'll put it out there for free.
Yeah. And it's almost the same.
Which one do you feel like is more overused, though? This Metropolis font or Waltograph?
Metropolis. But the Metropolis font they use they actually use in the parks, whereas the Waltograph is one that people just overuse when they're trying to make something look Disney-ish, I think.
I
Yeah.
I gotta bring up a photo that I took at Niagara Falls. There's a lot of bootleg stuff at Niagara Falls, but there's actually an image of like, I'll find
Why
it.
is
Go
it
on to
in
the
Niagara
next slide.
Falls?
You'll see. But yeah, what's the next graphic?
So this one was one where I wanted to make a, and I have dogs that are going crazy in the background, but I wanted to make a Halloween version of our logos. Because it's something that I work in radio, and that's one of the things we do sometimes is do stuff like that. And I think Tom had very little interest in doing that, but Jessica, who was handling she does everything, but she was handling the social media, and she was like, yeah, I like that idea. Let's do that. So she and I worked together to I put together a whole bunch of ideas for Disneyland News Today and for WDWNT to put together some Halloween logos. And so we worked kind of back and forth one night to get them knocked out, and this is what we ended up with. And then it stayed on the site. And Disney goes Halloween, as we all know, usually they go very early on Halloween, so it was on the site, or on the just on Instagram, I think, from most of the end of September and all through October, that we changed out the font, the logo. So we did that for Halloween, but we also did it when we were doing Star Wars. So the logo that you saw before, that was the PNG, so it was transparent, you could see through it. That was a that one. So that's the Star Wars version of the Disneyland News Today, because I had made one for WDW News Today, and then I made this different one for Disneyland News Today. So the one for WDW News Today had the Death Star in the D, and I don't know if you have that one available or not, Colleen, but the one that had the Death Star in it actually came up during a call that we were having about Star Wars. So again, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I don't know if you can tell. But then when I was putting together, we were on the call and we were talking about how Tom said he wanted to see different logos for when we were in full coverage of Star Wars Land Galaxy's Edge opening up. And so literally on the call, I put that other one together and put it in chat. And then it ended up being the logo that we used for News Today, for everything that we did.
I don't think you sent me the other one.
Okay. Do you have the, there's a News Today thumbnail that has Kenny G on it?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
What?
So that...
I can't imagine what this could possibly be for.
No, so I do the thumbnail for News Today, which we're going to have one, I'm sure, soon. So I do the thumbnail for News Today, but you can see they're in the logo for that time. We swapped out the logo for the Star Wars one, so you can see it up in there with the Death Star. But the reason that I included this thumbnail in here was not for that reason. It was for a different story that I'll go ahead and tell you right now while it's sitting up here, is that this particular News Today, when I was putting together the thumbnail, I was working with Nathan, because sometimes Nathan would fill in for Tom when Tom was in California covering Galaxy's Edge opening, or in Tokyo. So Nathan did News Today, and he was like, hey, today for News Today, I need a picture of the the Epcot monoliths going away, and something from Star Wars Land, and a picture of Kenny G, because he's been added to the Food and Wine Festival lineup. And so I did all that, and I used a different picture of Kenny G. And then Nathan, I threw the thumbnail into Slack and said, hey, is this what you're looking for? And Nathan's response, and I hope that he hears this at some point, Nathan's response was, no, we need a sexier picture of Kenny G. So the original one that I had was like him, like from far away, literally at like playing Flower and Garden or Food and Wine, one of them, and it was him on stage at that, and then he was like, no, we need a sexier picture. So and then he signed off on this one. So I feel like this is what passes for a sexier picture of Kenny G. I just thought that was interesting.
A sexier picture. I was, because I saw this in your folder, and I'm like, why is that in there?
Like, why
did Kenny G not belong in the...
Well, exactly. One of these things is not like the other. But I mean, the News Today graphic is, again, just one of those things that the thumbnail is that, I do them for Park Center, I do them for News Today, I do them for, Deep in the Plus. And so the thumbnails are something that is, I think we kind of just pass it off as just something else that we have, but it does usually take time. And sometimes, I'll throw a thumbnail into Slack and it'll be like, no, that's not what we want. We need this instead. So.
Oh God, this one was fun. So, okay, for the incorrect fact of the week, this was like a one-off joke. I think it was an Orange Bird one, and then Tom was like, I want there to be an incorrect fact of the week every single week on News Tonight, which means that so first of all, incorrect is spelled incorrectly. And people are like, it's spelled wrong. And we're like, yeah, it's the word incorrect. It's incorrect. And then we started doing them as like little animations. So I'm given the joke, which is Canadians refer to a part of their country as Central Canada. And then whatever visual is totally up to me. So I usually add some kind of extra gag in there, like the OBGYN Kenobi one, where he pops up and goes, hello there. Like that's just an extra joke on top of the joke of the title. So in this one, I'm like, I need a photo of confused Canadians. Tom, get over here. We need to take a photo really quick. So we put on toques and then we took this photo. And yeah, by the way, we don't call it Central Canada. I think that this is the worst Canada movie ever. I think the Martin Short one is genuinely a better Canada movie. Even all the comedy or the misplaced comedy is more accurate. Anyways, I'm done with this one.
So, speaking of Canada,
I can't believe you put this in here. I can't believe
Of course I did. So,
this wasn't even for the show.
I know. That's why I think it's great, is because it wasn't for the show, and this is another one of those things where I took time to put it together, and no one would ever see it after this because, Colleen does the Great Moments in History puppet shows, which are awesome, and we, I do the graphics for those, and then. It was Tyler's birthday, and I felt like Tyler's birthday needed a graphic. So I just threw this in Slack, and that's why it has the sock puppet in there and the Great Moments in History. And I used the most basic of fonts just for, I don't know, just because I thought it'd be funny. So just a basic like Chancery font, and then, and then the flag. So there were a couple different birthday ones that I did that I threw in here that I just thought were funny again, because no one else would ever see them. There was one that I did for Jason for his birthday. That was because Jason Diffendahl loves him some Epcot. I put together this with Jason. And the fun part about this picture was this is a selfie that I made him take with me when we were at the Reflections event, I think. And I just like stepped up to him and like leaned in and took a selfie with him. So I had to have a picture of Jason. I just happened to have this. I cropped myself out for something that we did for the Dippendals. Yes, that one. So I already had that, and so I didn't do it like a ton, but I went through and I found the Epcot logo and traced it out and put it over his O and used the background to the the Epcot like original entry guide to throw it together and put it in Slack, and that was it. Like, this is literally the only thing it was for me to wish Jason a happy birthday in Slack. That was it. And then there's one with there's a shirtless one that I put together for Jill, his sister, where I said I was getting a tattoo of Jill. Oh, good God. This is not me, by the way. Just letting you know, this is not me. But I said I was getting a tattoo for her birthday. I don't think I actually knew Jill all this well at this point either. It just seemed like the right thing to do. And then I threw it in Slack and just thought it was, just something to do for her birthday. And again, never saw the light of day anywhere else other than in Slack for just a moment. But it seemed like it was well worth the investment of time.
Now I'm sad that we all don't get birthday graphics from Rob. I didn't get anything for my birthday.
Oh no! Well, we'll have to fix that next time.
We'll make you 2 next time. Colleen, yeah. I put up some. We'll talk about that in a second. Colleen, I put something in the Slack channel. There it is. There's the Walt font on a funnel cake sign in Clifton Hill in Niagara Falls, and I'm like,
God,
there's so many bootleg fonts in Niagara Falls. Just because, first of all, the graphic design, Rob, I think we could agree that's terrible.
Oh, it's spot on.
But
no, it's awesome. I love it. It's absolutely. I love how they integrated the mural above it into whatever that hook is in the wall there. That's fantastic. Like, that's immersion right there. And the broken sign, and the fact that the funnel cake sign font doesn't match the funnel cake font across the top. Like they're using a different font on the circle sign than they are on the other one.
I love how the background
but below
of the
it
funnel
still
cake
says
sign.
Below it still says "Cakes on the Hill" in Waltograph.
Yeah. I like how the background of the funnel cake sign is like macarons or something. Like it's not even a funnel cake.
And then, though those are balloons. Those aren't macarons. Those are balloons.
Are they? Whatever.
Those are definitely balloons.
Let's go back to the
and
Guardians
then,
one.
That for some reason, there's like.
What? Oh, sorry. Finish, Spencer.
No, I was just gonna say, and then for some reason there's Japanese on the boba tea shop next to it. I'm so confused by all this.
Oh, of course there is. This wasn't even made for anything. This was I forget. It was on Twitter. Somebody was making a joke about how we have to live with it, the Guardians of the Galaxy show building, and then I photoshopped this in like 2 minutes. just for the joke of living with the Guardians of the Galaxy show building, and then it got like a ton of retweets and likes. But yeah, this had nothing to do with news tonight. This was just a funny joke we put on Twitter out of context. I just wanted to show it. It was in my folder of stuff, but it wasn't actually something for news tonight.
So
yay!
So here's the thing about this, and Colleen, I was very unclear about this, but there are 3 of these that were the 100th anniversary of Park Center, so I don't know if you have the other 2 available. But one of the things that I like to do, a little game that Ben and I like to play sometimes, and I say Ben and I mean I like to play this game, is that when I'll do a thumbnail for Ben, sometimes I'll send him something that I think is kind of garbage, and then just go, hey, is this okay? And sometimes, and he's so nice, he's so freaking nice, he'll go, yeah, we can use that. That's cool. So this was something that I put together for the 100th episode that we just had of Park Center. And then there was a second one that I put together that was, I think, a little bit worse. It looks like the screen. And I just said, so I was like, oh, we'll do a little bit of a throwback. So I put 100th episode of Park Center live from WDWNT on the left-hand side. And again, he was so nice about it. He was like, well, I guess that's something we could use. But for the final one, and I'd already done all this work. And again, this is basically for my own amusement and maybe to amuse Ben. But this was the graphic that I actually made for the 100th episode. So you can see all the thumbnails in the background of the shows that we've done, kind of in a quilt or a pattern in the background, and then using the Park Center logo in the middle of the 100, because I felt like that kind of all like came together pretty well. I was excited about this graphic, and again, that's one of these things that you work on, and it's kind of like a passion project, and then when you're all done with it and you put it out there, it's seen like by for about 8 seconds, and then it's over. But just the fact that sometimes I like to just throw a piece of garbage, or what I think is a piece of garbage, out there, just to entertain people, and then I guess sometimes it misses. I don't know. Clearly, I feel like it's missed here.
There's another incorrect fact.
Oh God!
I added this one because I needed photos of college program cast members, but I couldn't find any. So this is a photo of Alicia and Thomas when we were all staying at Stage 89. we were all in the same hotel, so we got a bunch of photos of all of us together, and I'm like, they look like they belong in the college program. So again, there was the text of the joke, and then I had to just make whatever the graphic would be, and then I went for that. I think I don't even know if we use this one. I mean, I make an incorrect every week, but they don't always get played.
No, this one was used. I remember this one.
We use a program where sometimes images don't load in the same way that a video does. Like a video just works better, which is why all of the incorrects and Disney Pluses and commercials are like video versions now, because it's just easier to play them rather than bring up a static image. By the way, thank you very much, Colleen, for bringing up all of these static images. But yeah, I think that this one was supposed to be on 1 week, and then it ended up being the next one.
So for this one, we've done a couple of bad billboard segments where Tom goes around, and takes pictures of bad billboards, and so they'll put the ideas out there and say these are the ones we want to do, and sometimes they're like, I look at it and go, I know exactly what that needs to look like. And sometimes I put it together and go, I'm not really sure what this needs to be. And so, I'll try to plow through them. And so we've done the bad billboard bit 3 times. And this was one where I was like, I was very proud of the fact that I found a billboard. And when I do this bit, I find all different billboards so that it doesn't look like the same billboard with like different stuff on it. I always find different billboards. But I got roasted like as he was doing this pitch about where in Florida would this billboard be, because there are like winter trees in the background of this picture. I mean, it's really not easy to find a lot of random pictures of billboards out there, but I try to find as many different ones as possible. And so I just like flamed for the fact that this was definitely not in Orlando. But I mean, people anywhere can hate Epcot forever. That's fine. But this bad billboard bit, I think there were like 10 to 12 in this one, and then we did another one. And then we did one that was bad billboards in space for the space show. So for the space show, everything was space themed. You saw earlier the Jumble Cruise graphic was space themed, and we had one that was like another Epcot joke that I don't know if Colleen has available or not, but it was a billboard in space. So that was the same thing too. Like, I don't know what a space billboard looks like. Like, hey, would it be floating? Would it be on a planet? How would we make that work? So I did like probably a dozen of those as well for that show. So.
If you didn't put it in your folder, I don't have it.
It was in the folder. It was black. It has Epcot in white on a black background. But it's not the end of the world. It may not have made the merge, because I know that you had to toss them from one place to another.
Oh, I'm gonna find it now. Oh no, I found it.
That was fast.
I don't know what a space billboard looks like, so I was like, what am I looking for?
Right, exactly. So I just, you're right. Like I wanted it to sort of, I guess, mimic the Jetsons, and but I had a whole bunch of different ones, and one of them like was on a planet, but they all had to look, to me, they all had to look different, because you wouldn't see this just, the same one over and over again with the same view in the background. So and again, I don't know if that kind of work matters, like if I should make everything look different, but I mean, to make the bit again feel real, it should be they should all be different, as if they Tom was wandering around space taking these pictures. Thanks for finding that.
No problem. Speaking of space.
That's another old commercial, and I was like given it. I listened to the audio. I listened to the commercial itself. Sorry, we actually did a recent advertisement where it was like referencing this commercial, and I had to go, ha ha ha, what a callback in the voiceover. And I had never heard this commercial before. And then I listened to it and I'm like, can I make a visual joke out of this? I don't know if I can. Like, I easily replicated the font. Photoshop is a tool to make things like extrude in 3D like that. And it looked identical to the actual Mars Needs Moms logo, but I did not know what to do for the visual. And then I don't know if it was Ben or somebody was just like, just do a cheetah being abducted. And I'm like, okay, that's easy. But I drew the face on the cheetah looking like, what? And the eyes like being cross-eyed and the legs just like bending. It is so stupid.
Yeah, Patrick Hackett was, I think, part of the original joke for some reason. And when we were doing Deep in the Plus, somebody was like, "Oh, so you guys should review Mars Needs Moms." And Patrick was like, there was somebody who was like, "Patrick, you should totally do this." And so Patrick Hackett and I did a review of Mars Needs Moms and talked about Mars Needs Cheetahs several times.
All right, what else we got?
So when there was a time when I think Jason maybe reached out to me and said he wanted to redo the March Madness logo, and this was one of the options that I gave for a new March Madness logo for News Today. And so I mean, before I started working for the company, I was a big fan of this bit because I kind of love the idea of, you know, taking 64 Disney things that I love and trying to figure out which one is the best and talking to other people about it and listening to what everybody else's opinions are. So I threw this graphic together as one of like 3 or 4 options. Cause in what I do in my day job, sometimes if it's a big project and I feel like March Madness is a marquee thing for the company, I will try to give multiple options. So I put this together. I thought it was kind of cute with the mouse ears over the M. It has the dimples that a basketball would have. I just like, for some reason, I thought it was a fun one. They passed on this one. The one that we ended up doing was this one. And the funny thing is, I think when I put it together originally, it didn't have the Epcot ball in the middle. And somebody was like, why wouldn't you put the Epcot ball in the middle? And I was like, yes, why wouldn't I? That's dumb. Why didn't I do that in the first place? So, I mean, I like what we ended up with, but I think that, it's kind of neat to see kind of the other options that were out there at the time. I think it's neat to see. I don't know if everybody else does.
Oh, geez. I'm just like, some of these I'm like, why did I put this in here again? So there was no actual Dick Tracy's Crime Stoppers ride, but this is the concept art for it. But I had to make it look like there's people shooting Tommy guns. So that's actually a ride vehicle from this terrible dark ride in Niagara Falls again. And I added the Tommy gun, like they're holding laser blasters. I think I only photoshopped one kid using a Tommy gun though, but the other 2 kids still have like the laser blasters. And then, yeah, I animated the bullets shooting out of the gun. And then I think during the show, Tom Corliss was like, "Oh, is he going to hit him?" And then I just made it fade out before it actually hit the guy on the far left. I didn't want to animate like a blood splatter coming out of his head though. But now maybe I think I should have. It would have been funny for the joke.
Oh, it's so funny. I was literally just gonna like typing to Ben in the chat about this one because he was talking about a graphic and he said this was like one of 2 that he personally made, or the stuff, and it was the bobsled GIF. So Ben does the games, and so we were doing an updated version of the Family Feud logo, and so I went back to the drawing board on like the original Family Feud. And so I went and put this thing together, gave him a couple options because, the games are his baby. So I wanted to make sure it looked right. And I gave him a couple options and he was like, that's perfect, except for the D needs to also be cross stitched. And I was like, oh, I'm not really sure what this looks like. And he's like, hey, I want to do that. And I went, what? And he goes, just send me the graphic.
Right.
I want to do the D. So Ben put together the D, the logo at the top on this one. So it was a collaboration. He was like, no, give me that. I know exactly what I want, and he put it together. So it's really funny that like I was literally about to say when in chat to him like, oh, you said you did like 2 graphics for the blog. Is this one of them? So yeah, so everything on here, like I rebuilt the outside of the logo. Everything else is kind of a recreation, because I talked about that earlier about recreating things, a recreation of the original Family Feud logo. It looks obviously much different with the new Steve Harvey version, but like this was the old school original. And then the D is a Ben Harris original.
Ben Harris original.
This one's really cool. I like this one.
Oh God, I forgot I did this. Do you know how hard it was to find this banner? Like a good quality image of this banner that was outside of Test Track before it opened for like the longest time. The joke of this was that Test Track said opening spring 97, and then spring 97 came and went, and then they just changed the text on the banner to say opening soon because they had no date in mind. And so since Mickey and Minnie's was delayed forever, Tom wanted this banner to be hung up in front. So it's like, oh yeah, we have a banner for when Mickey and Minnie's is going to open, and then it's this instead.
But I seem to remember
when I
was going to say, I seem to remember when you were putting this together that like this was one of those things about context where you were like, wait, what? What's this supposed to be? Didn't you go through a couple different versions?
I think so. I honestly do not remember. I hate that I can see the shadow on the sky on the far right. Spencer, did you have something to say about it?
I was just gonna say, when was Runaway Railway supposed to open originally?
Oh, like I want to say summer 2019, and then it got delayed.
Oh, wow, okay.
Until like basically a few months ago.
Until it got delayed to a week before the parks closed.
Yeah.
I think more people have heard Something Has Stopped Us Now than have heard the actual version of that song.
Yeah. I think the reason Tom sort of teased it on the show was we had heard that like the ride just was not working, like the kind of stuff that was happening, or even just like the story of the ride was no one really understood it, so they went and rewrote it, and then side stuff had to be re-recorded and animated, like, and so it took forever. The sky is fake and the media is hiding it. But just like one of those little touches to make something look realistic is just like adding a shadow like that, like just making it look like the light is being casted in the same way. Like we talked about, like adding like noise filters or just like painting over something, or like the name tags that Rob did, like just adding some kind of transparency to like make it look like it's believable. And with that one, that was just another thing, was just like to make it really look real, was just adding that shadow so it looks like it was in front of it, or even just like erasing, like so it looks like it's behind other images and stuff. Really just makes it look like more realistic.
The thing is, the shadow on that makes it look like it's at the wall at the end of the Truman Show dome. Like that's just the Chinese theater at the end of the dome of the Truman Show.
It's a big painting. I should have erased the shadow.
The plus side of when they only get shown for 7 seconds is you don't need to scrutinize them like this. You know, it's like, for what it was just the effect of it. It was perfectly, I mean, it was exactly what it needed to be. So now, again, going back and scrutinizing it, you go, what if I had, taken off that shadow or whatever?
Oh, there is the logo.
Reminder, you're watching WDW News Today.
This logo ran for months because it was well before Galaxy's Edge opened, and we ran it for a while after it opened, waiting. And I think we actually pulled it before the one in Florida opened. It was really more for the opening of Galaxy's Edge in California. But yeah, it's just really funny that it was just like that. Just seemed like the right thing to do, is to throw that Death Star in the middle, and then it all happened very quickly. Sometimes it does. Sometimes you throw something together, and it's exactly what you need. And sometimes you have to work it to death, and you still don't necessarily get exactly what you needed out of it. That's the frustrating part. I mean, as opposed to an accountant, the numbers always add up, right? This case, not really. I mean, you may end up with something that is just okay, and it's fine, and it passes for what it needs to be, but it was never perfect. And that's, I think, what we're always hoping for, is we get the perfect thing that describes the comedy bit, or is the perfect thumbnail or a logo for a game or whatever.
All right, what's next? Oh, I should have put in the video version of this. Okay, so Mystic Manor is inhabited by the founders of Mystic Iced Tea and his pet lemon Albert. And again, I was just like given free reign over what the visual would be. I think they just wanted, like, I don't know what they wanted. So I took an iced tea bottle of Mystic Iced Tea, which I didn't even know existed, and I put a fez and a robe on it to make it look like, oh my God, what is his name? Henry Mystic, Lord Henry Mystic. And then, yeah, that's just a lemon with another fez on it. It's so dumb, but what I did for the video, this is one of the first video ones I did. I just animated them walking in, just like moving left and right, like that. Oh my God!
What I really appreciate this is that both of the fezzes are different. That to me is like the I think that's an important touch. I mean, you could have easily taken the same fez and put it on both, but again, it's going that extra mile and making them different.
Well, yeah, the one on the top had to hang off, but the other one had to like hit the lemon or like be stuck on the lemon. I'm just making that up. I have no idea why I did that. What's that video? It's just like who's that actor? He's in all the Wes Anderson movies. There's this weird animation of this Adrian Brody. Adrian Brody is just like walking down the street, and then he's like on the moon, and I'm like, I want to replicate that animation. So they just sort of like wiggle into the frame. Oh God.
So here's the thing about this one. This is one where, again, at first, there's a lot to unpack for me on this one. The first one was that it was a request from Nathan for this bit that he was doing called the Family Fill-In, and the bit was that you wanted to have a person in your party replaced either because they weren't attractive or because they weren't having a good time at Disney, and you just wanted to swap them out with somebody else. And there's this new service that we're offering called the Family Fill-In. So replace mom, replace dad, replace the kids, and then be able to enjoy your vacation. So the ask in Slack was, hey, I need a graphic for the Family Fill-In. That was the ask, and I didn't know what the bit was at that point. Hadn't heard it, didn't have a script or anything, and so I had to ask for more information. So I was like, what is this going to look like? Because I can't use some random family and take a picture and put it out there, because that's a big thing, is you have to have like the rights to the image, or you have to, just use a part of the image or whatever. So I wasn't really sure what to do. So I grabbed a picture of my brother-in-law's family on MDX, because I have, we share MDX. And so I had found a picture on there of his family, and then decided to replace him as the family fill-in. The part that I find hilarious about this is I never told them about this. They don't watch the show. That's their fault, really, if you think about it, that they don't watch the show. So, I mean, they have no idea that they're being used this way, or that he's been replaced. But anyway, so I found this picture, a licensed picture of a model that I got, and then I created the fake tape to put on it, and then added the mouse ears onto it. So anyway, this one in particular, though, just makes me laugh, because they literally have no clue, but because we share MDX, I feel like I can go ahead and use this picture.
Oh God, this was a thing. This was sometimes I'll have to take an existing image and just modify the heck out of it. In this case, the actual poster for People Mover had a bunch of people in it, so I had to paint them out and then make it look like those vehicles are empty. And then it was finding the same font as People Mover, and then putting in Tom's face to make it look like it belonged in the same art style. I really don't like the way it looks now. I wish I just painted it by scratch to make it match the same art style, but the bottom bit where it says Unscrupuland was my joke. This was right after the Unscrupulous thing happened, and I was like, it needed something. I think there was a Walt Disney World logo at the bottom of the actual poster, so I switched it out to instead say Unscrupuland, and then now we sparked the joke.
Tomorrowland, Tyler, instead of that may have been why you put Unscrupuland. It may have said Tomorrowland.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
But I'm that's just something I'm a little bit jealous of. Is like, you said, oh, I could have just painted this or hand drawn it or whatever. I wouldn't have ever been able to do that. I can make it look right digitally, but I wouldn't have been able to hand draw it.
I think we sell this as a poster.
I think it's on TeePublic.
We did a. Oh my God! This has a whole story to it.
God,
this is a whole story to it.
Yeah. So this was at Stage 89, and at Stage 89, there was a time where Pete and I wasn't there, but where Pete and Jessica were together somewhere.
I wasn't there either.
And if Jessica, if you know that she loves her gelatoni and carries it around the parks, and he's family, and so when we were doing
gelatoni is God.
Yes, exactly. No argument from me. So when they were walking through the park, the story is that Pete took the gelatoni out of her hands and put it on the back of an ECV that was driving by.
Not one of our people, a random person.
Right, and it was just driving by, and he put it on the back of the ECV, and then Gelatoni kept going. And his take on it was that as Gelatoni was leaving, that Jessica said, "Pero no!" Like that was the thing that she was yelling as Gelatoni was running away on his ECV. And so there was a request, and I think it might have actually been from Jessica that was like, oh, I'd love to have a graphic that is Gelatoni's runaway ECV. And so I literally put this together just for her. Like it was never, I don't think it was ever seen on News Tonight. I don't think we ever put anything out there about it. We never made a commercial. But it was one of those things where I, put it together. I thought it was kind of cool. And just wanted to share it because it never sees anything past this. Like there are so many of those little things like the birthday wishes or the Colleen is the bee on Google that, that we put in, that we do to entertain ourselves and to entertain our coworkers in this company, our friends, and they just never see anything else. So I figured that, since Tyler, you'd put this bit together, this show together, that this would be a time to share stuff like that.
Oh yeah, it's sort of that because I remember seeing this and I'm like, why is this not a bit on our show? Oh God, that's funny. Every once in a while, I will do an incorrect, and Tom will say, "This is the best incorrect out of any of the ones we've done." This was one he said at that time. So the joke was, if Built the Great Muppet Movie Ride would have been replaced by High School Musical, the musical, the series, the ride. And again, totally up to me what the visual was. So I took concept art for that Muppet area. I painted Kermit out, or Fozzie was in the foreground of the art. And then yes. I needed it to look like it was Wildcats themed. So I basically desaturated everything. And then I painted in the color red and white where the rest of the rides were. So it was me meticulously I use like a Wacom tablet so I can like draw and it'll appear the same way in Photoshop. So I I painted red over it, and then I used just like a layer style to like multiply it. So anything that was normally black would be replaced with the color red. or anything black or gray. So anything white will stay white, but the color would be applied to anything that was dark. And then that's just the same Wildcat banner like 7 times, I think. Yeah, 7. You can see at the top right where I hastily painted the same cloud over I think there was just like a Kermit balloon head or something at the top right. And you can see like there's a bit of difference in the sky. And then I changed the sign at the back to say school cafeteria instead of the pizza place. Or that was Gonzo's. No, it wasn't Gonzo's Royal Flush. But yeah. That was a big one. And then, yeah, photoshopping the cast to look like they belong in the same concept art. Oh, God, this was a big one to do. And then I think I even zoomed in so you could see all the details on it, or like all the stuff that was red.
This one's really cool. I like this.
What was this big tower like in that? What is this?
Oh, no.
I don't remember this.
So this is one where it was around, I think it may have been around Halloween, that it was WDWNT, the costume shop. And and so, again, the ask was, we want to make all these costumes. And I really wasn't quite understanding it, I guess. So, like, you know, I didn't know specifically what they were looking for, but it was a commercial, I think, that we ran. It wasn't a bit we did on the show. So I think you can find this on YouTube. But this one, like, again, was one of those that took a long time because I wanted it to look right. But this particular one was about the Skyliner, like the Skyliners crashing together. So it was a joke couples costume. And there was another one, and I can't remember if I put it in there or not, but there were a couple of them. There was one that was this one. So it was a sexy security officer, Disney security. So it's got the Disney badge and the hat. So there were, and I think we did like about a dozen of these, but it was one of those bits that there were a couple that I did, and then I would put it in Slack and people would go, no, not sure this needs to look this way, or this would be better if it was this. So there was a lot of feedback on these and I was just thinking, that's great. I would love to do that, but show's in 2 hours. So we're going to do the best we can to plow through this one. But yeah, that was again one of those that was, I put a lot of work into it, had a lot of fun doing it. It was very stressful because of the time that we had left to do it, but I was happy with the way it turned out. And then when I went back looking through graphics to share today, I was like, oh yeah, that was something that happened.
Oh my gosh, that was another thing where it was like right before the show, and what does the actual napkin say? Celebrate today, or celebration today, or something?
I think it's celebrate today.
And he just wanted the napkin to say something different. So I painted out the word, and then I found the same font, and then it was like I had to blur it in the same way so it looks like it belongs there. And then I blurred it a second time so that it matches like the focus of the image, and then the same like angle that the previous text was on, and then adding noise, because like if you look at the castle, it's like pretty grainy. So I had to replicate that as well. This looks so real though. Like there's times where like I have to make it look realistic, and when like it doesn't when I'm doing it, and then by the time I'm done and I look at it later, I'm like, darn, that looks really good. Quarantine today. This was fairly recent then, I guess. What? Was this
$1,500 I was riding the people mover and it crashed at under 2 miles per hour. My neck was broken in 75 places, and my $1,500 2015 Marathon Dooney was thrown from the ride and run over by a Tomorrowland Speedway car. You never know who you might see aboard the TTA, but I know who Disney's going to see. My lawyers. Calling Ganondola.
Were you injured in a low-speed transit accident aboard the Tomorrowland Transit Authority People Mover? Was your expensive handbag then run over by a slow-moving lawnmower with seating for two? Call 1-777-777-7777 for the law offices of Gon and Dola.
Hello, I'm Bud G. Gon.
And I'm Roz Dola.
If you were injured trying to ride the only damn thing without a wait time, the People Mover, call us.
You know what else never stops moving?
What's that?
Justice. Like the justice we will get for you.
So don't delay and wait for Disney to just hand you some fast passes. When the blue line becomes the black and blue line, you're going to need our help.
There's 2 ways to run a ride, the wed way and the wrong way. And if you got hurt because of the wrong way, we'll make it right.
Call now or come into our Rocket Tower Plaza offices so we can get you the interplanetary currency you deserve.
Gon and Dola also handled teleportation company and time machine manufacturer negligence cases. Call 1-777-777-7777 to get the out-of-this-world compensation you deserve.
Did you do the commercial, Tyler?
I edited it, which was basically just that first bit at the beginning, and then we have the ad logo that you did.
Right. So the funny thing about this ad is that we originally did it for the Skyliner back when they had the Skyliner crash, and that's why it's Gon and Dola. And so when I made the first one, I made it look like I literally researched super cheesy lawyer ads. And so that's why, like, these are fonts I would never use on my own. And again, like the 24 hours is like, it looks horrible. It's like gradient. I mean, it's like fuzzy. It's supposed to be because that's what those ads look like. They just look bad. I mean, these are law offices where these guys have a lot of money and the ads just a lot of times look cheesy. So I created this format just for that one bit that was the gondola incident. And then it just, I think, Chris does an amazing job of the voiceover. Pete and Allison as Gon and Dola is awesome. And it just became a runaway bit that they did after the first commercial they did. And so every now and then it'll come up and it's like, hey, we need a Gon and Dola ad for next week. And then I just do the thumbnail based on whatever it was before. So we did one for when the Jungle Cruise ship sank, and we did one for when there was an issue on Mission Space. And so I just try to make them look a little bit different. And the Statue of Justice is always holding something related to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's always related to whatever it was that happened. And I think again, this was the genesis of it. Like that weird background that's there now is exactly what those ads look like. So it was a recreation of ad. Yeah. Wow, you pulled them all up. So again, the same thing, the jungle navigation, you notice the background colors are different because it's like this is green because of the Jungle Cruise, and we have that photo faded in the background of, them actually sinking. And then it just like the putting the life preserver up there with jungle navigation on it just like made sense to do. And it just, these kind of write themselves after a while. So yeah. So, this was the second one. So it was basically exactly the first one. And I think, Tyler, they had asked for this and you had made something else. And then I think Tom was like, no, it has to look like the first one. So
I was trying to replicate yours. So I looked up ads and then I saw like the 3 that basically make up this one. And because I replicated, and I tried replicating it, and it looked almost identical because you and I took inspiration from the exact same advertisements. It was really funny.
Yeah. That one, yeah. That
one was a mask.
Yeah. So again, I mean, and I always try to use a different color. Like the reason that the People Mover one was purple in the background, because I wanted them to all look different. Like the first 2 look the same, the gondola one, and then the Pete and a Q one. But everything else I've tried to kind of keep the same feel, but then make it so that like visually you can see the difference when you go from one to the next. And that actually, that Lego, that car that she's holding is actually a Lego car that somebody recreated, or actually maybe 3D modeled. With partially Legos and partial 3D model. And then I like cropped it out, made it smaller, and put it up at the top. So It's just, I mean, it's one of those things that just comes up and we just throw it together and put it out there. But there's a lot of story that goes behind it, and even more work that goes behind the scenes to make the commercial, because somebody has to write the script, and then they have to coordinate everybody to get together and do their audio part. And then, you know, somebody, and you know, on this one, it was you, has to put together the video part of it. So it's really kind of cool. Wow. Super chat. Thank you.
Yeah. Big shout out to Robbie Elliott. The art you two make adds so much to these programs. Thank you.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, thank you, Robbie.
So much. Yes.
If anyone, but I don't think we said it at the beginning of the show, but oh my God. But if anyone wants to drop any donations, they go all to WDWNT and making our shows possible and paying the people who get paid for all their work. And Spencer seems to have fallen through his floor. He found a warp. If you want to see even more of this kind of stuff, and a lot of some graphic stuff goes up on Patreon, like high quality stuff, like our Haunted Mansion graphics. You can go to patreon.com/WDWNT. We have a ton of post shows. We're scanning in a lot of documents that we have gotten our hands on. That sounds kind of sinister. We have a lot of design documents from like attractions and stuff that never got built. We're scanning those in high quality, high res, so that you can read them all and see them all and take logs of them as much as you want. That's stuff that we have on patreon.com/WDWNT. Stuff like watches type shows, like Rider Rehab Watches, will I think be a Wigs exclusive type thing in the future. So you can watch live shows and live post shows exclusively for you, or you can use the super chat in YouTube. If you want to do something like Robbie did, leave a little bit of text or a little sticker. I love when people use the super stickers. Those are fun.
Yeah, you know what?
Right. Pickles! So the pickle incident happened. I say incident. It was weird. It was people know it. I don't have to say it again. Jessica said pickle in a weird way on a version. I think it was Match Game. And so the joke was that the pickle was invented at Casa de la Fritos at Disneyland, or Casa de Fritos, not de la Fritos. Sorry.
That was what she said. She said that the pickle was invented at.
Yeah, it was at Tony's Town Squares.
Yeah.
And then that was her guess, was that what was invented at Disneyland.
That sign is real. That was a real sign. It said, hang on, let me see what it was. Yeah, I got to look up what the original sign said really quick. Casa de Fritos Disneyland. It said, eat delicious Mexican foods. And there was a big plate of like rice and beef on the left. So I painted that out. I painted out Mexican foods. I used the same font and color for delicious pickles, grabbed a bunch of images of pickles. And then that's an image of the restaurant Casa de Fritos in the background, like an old one from like the 60s. But to make that bit, like I needed to sell that bit like somebody had a pickle in their hand. So I was like, what's like the most 60s outfit that I have? I'm just going to take a photo of myself really quickly. And then I just I put on like a hat, like a Newsies hat and this t-shirt. And I photoshopped it to look so old and blurry, and then replicate the lighting in the photo as well. This one was, that one was fun. That was like, sometimes I finish these like the day of and no one sees it until it plays on the show. So I get to see genuine reactions from people. That's always fun.
Just a quick interruption. I'll be right back real quick. Give me like 2 minutes.
Okay. Next.
So there are a bunch of the little graphic things that I'll put together, and I feel like it started with the Christmas one, but that sometimes I'll just throw it into Slack just to wish everybody a happy holiday. But for this one, it was a request that we do something because Earth Day is the day that the Animal Kingdom opened up, so it's like a big deal that they both happen on the same day. And so this was just something that I threw together, and we did one version for Disneyland News today, and we did one version for WDW News today. And put it up on Instagram and on our social channels. So just again, little things that we put together on a regular basis that get thrown up, they're there and they go away. So, one for Easter. I think the Easter one I really, again, more put together for just to wish everybody a happy Easter in Slack. But I was really proud of the fact that I had the little mouse ears on the egg and the cast on the background and all that kind of stuff. So it's, again, something that doesn't get seen much. And then the Christmas one, again, I just kind of put it together and threw it in chat to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. And then I think Jessica or somebody threw it up on Instagram afterwards. So it wasn't designed for Instagram. It was just designed to throw up and wish everybody a happy holiday.
Don't those lay flat images come in handy? What was the joke of this? Oh yeah, the Christmas tree parade, Christmas tree trails, or rejected Christmas tree trails. I think that was another one where you and I each took like half of the list.
Yes. You know what? Yeah, there was one that my son had like pointed at an empty tree, and I had forgotten that we had worked on this together because we did, and I put something on it. Just happened to work out that we used one from the trail, but we did this one together. We did that the Epcot Forever ones together, and we did the gingerbread ones together too.
I think I put a few of the gingerbread ones in here because they were good.
Yeah, but
this one was fun.
This is hilarious because it's true.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, if you sit on the left or the right side of Soarin', because of the shape of the tree, because of the shape of the screen, the way it's curved, the CN Tower. Oh my God, I gotta wake up. Because the Eiffel Tower, sorry, is always curved in a terrible way. If you don't sit like front center, like which is the ideal location for Soarin', which is the highest, most center. Yeah. What's it called? Glider?
Sure.
Sure.
It's one of those things that like the original one didn't seem to have that problem, but the new CGI'd version of Soarin', the Soarin' Around the World, seems to be much worse about that. Like I don't ever remember that being a problem with Soarin' over California, but Soarin' over the world, or Soarin' Around the World, just it looks a little bit ick.
Yeah.
It used to be the only problem you had with Soarin' was like you needed to sit at the top so you didn't see people's legs. I threw this one in there because I was proud of the way that this worked out as far as like mocking the original. Because again, there was really no direction given other than the fact that Tom was doing a commercial called Great Grief Counseling for people who couldn't let go of the Great Movie Ride being gone. And so there were several different logos for the Great Movie Ride, including, you know, the neon one that Tyler, that you redid for the show itself. And so because that one was being used, I just went ahead and used this one that there was a poster of and redid. So this was one where I feel like I had to track down I think the Great Movie Ride font was easy enough to find, but the trying to mimic was a problem. So I went through several fonts trying to find the right one to put it up there. And I don't think there were any problems with this one once I put it in, except for I didn't use the right tag at the bottom. And that was the only thing that I think Tom went back and said, hey, can you just throw this tag in there? And because I think at the time, maybe seen the entire script at that point. But yeah, I was really proud of this one because I feel like it looked very similar to the original.
There's so many incorrects. When sleeping, Joe Rohde's earring has its own tiny pillow. So that's Joe Rohde's face, and he was propped up like that on his hand, but I photoshopped someone else's closed eyelids over his actual eyes. Because you can see where on his left eye, to us that's the right side, where like the wrinkles don't fully go into the eye properly, so you can see where it's like outlined. And then I had to Photoshop his earring to be a little bit longer, so I can put a pillow design behind it, and then mimic the lighting and everything. Well, I put a gradient filter on it so that the colors were consistent for both images. That's a little graphic design trick.
Yeah, so this one, the great moments bit was like, I love this bit, Colleen. You guys do such a good job with it. And the graphics are such a small part of it, but I think that it's basically just a stall so that you can reset what you need to do on your side.
How fast can you change puppets?
Right, exactly. But I love, and I think at some point, Nathan had maybe suggested that we make a video of it so that the music and the slides were there, and then it's like, no, we need to have the timing of this thing up. But that was a fun one to put together, that main graphic of the great moments in history, from the Muppets. Obviously it's a takeoff on that, but it was fun to do this one. And as a matter of fact, at one point I think we've swapped out now Bob Chapek for Bob Iger on the other side. And it's just, again, the graphics I think are a small part of it, but they actually serve a purpose in this point in being able to have something on the screen while everybody's scrambling in studio to reset. And then for Christmas, we just needed, I think for this one, this was one where I felt like I needed to go above and beyond, because I think the ask was just for the slides. And I was like, well, can we do a special Christmas version? And Tom was like, yeah, I guess. And so we put it together, and I had Mickey on the left and just like a picture of Santa on the right. And he's like, well, why wouldn't you just use the Tim Allen from the Santa Claus? And I was like, that's too genius. I don't understand why I didn't even think of that. So that was just fun to be able to do a different version of that. But again, Colleen, as far as the bits go, I mean, this is one of my favorites, I think, from News Tonight that you guys do. And it basically, I credit it all to you, if that's okay.
I'm cool with that.
Oh, there's one of the gingerbread ones. There was nothing here in this. So the other gingerbreads, I like took an existing thing and photoshopped it to look like it was gingerbread texture. There was nothing here before. I don't even know where. I think this was a smoking area because that's a real sign. But then I basically just built these there are two walls, and then added little smoke coming out of it, and then added a shadow so it looks like it belongs there. I'm just now noticing the shadow on the sign is the opposite direction of the shadow I made. So I kind of wish I had fixed that now. But yeah, like you saw this for 8 seconds? So it doesn't really matter that much. That one was funny to do, though.
So this is one where, again, context, I was like, what does that even look like? Because
what is that? I've never seen this.
So Tom reached out to me, and I remember I was actually working my job in another market at the time, and it was like he reached out to me during the day, and he was like, hey, we need a graphic to tell people that...
Oh, Rob? All right. Well, Rob will be back in just.
He froze. Well, here, Tyler, talk about this.
Okay. This one is good. So the Camila Falco, I think, is the character that's actually in Soarin', or Soaring, which is in Tokyo. Shame Spencer's not here right now because he could talk more about that attraction. But that poster, yeah,
that's Camellia Falco, yeah.
That poster is real, and then I photoshopped Edie Falco's head over top her actual head, and then made it look like it was painted. And same thing with Falco. But then the one bit that I got to add to this was at the top. It says a bunch of Italian stuff, but I instead made it say "do a barrel roll" in like bad Italian. That was, I think, Fig suggested that joke. Do a barrel roll. Fig suggested that joke, and then I just put it in, and then everyone was surprised it and realized it on the actual show. What a great facade for that attraction, though. That's beautiful.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Hey guys,
yeah,
we're gonna take a break because we're going to be bringing you live footage from Disney Springs.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay.
Maybe we can do more graphics after, but for the moment, live, Disney Springs. So I just got to push a bunch of buttons. Say goodbye, boys.
Bye, boys.
Bye.
Bye, Rob.
Wait.
Bye, Rob.
Bye, Frozen Rob. Bye, Tyler.